So now I'd like to open up some question and answer from the audience, and it's a very intimate gathering. We may not need a mic, but I see that. Who would, any questions that you'd like to direct to any of the panelists? Must be something. Yes, yes. I saw you first.
Hi.
Would you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Tamara Griffin. I'm actually a student in the journalism school. I'm doing a dual master's in journalism and Africana studies, 2 floors down. And I currently freelance for Amsterdam News in Harlem, which is a Black-owned newspaper. And recently I have found myself very interested journalistically in reporting on the arts, and also kind of expanding the marginalized groups that I've been reporting on, which has started to include the LGBTQ community. So between what I have reported on and the type of news that I have been consuming within that community, I have confronted some sort of issues, like if I'm reporting on a transgender woman, the friends of whom refer to her as a she, but the family refers to her as a he, or reading about a transgender model who posed with a heterosexual male model, and there seemed to be a lot of anger over the types of adjectives that were used to describe her, and things like that. So,
do you want to pose this question to a specific panelist?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's not as that. No, no, thank you. But the question is, what sort of things should journalists take into consideration when they have to report on LGBTQ issues for an audience that might not be necessarily part of or an ally to that community, in a way that is kind of like advocating for social justice and showing that community in its full humanity, and not just reducing them to a single identity marker like you were talking about?
Anyone here?
Yeah, I think it should be, I mean, for me, it's really, and I started out as a journalist, for me, it's about how that person identifies themselves, and affirming that is really important, as opposed to, like, kind of coming from it from the outside. I think it's really having this, this giving voice to that, because that pronoun is actually giving voice to something in that person's, the core identity. And so I think that's really important. And I think that, at this point where it's really flexible right now, this range of identities around gender.
Recently, I was watching a documentary on the balls and the history of the balls, and I did not realize how many of those girls had entered into professional modeling, and they were all referred to as she, her. And I always have respected, if I can, go back to the person and say, how would you like to be identified? And if it's, clearly I am Monica Davis, then she is Monica Davis.
Echo.
Thank you.
Next.
Do you ever wish that you could just not have to deal with the fact that you are homosexual in terms of your work? I'm a painter, and I did a large body of work, and it was all Black women. It is all Black women. And once I was found out as being a lesbian, the reading of the work completely changed. It was like, oh, that's why you're interested in women. Not because I am a woman, or because I'm a Black woman, or that I like the music because it's a lot about, it's because I'm a lesbian. So do you find that the readings of your work, the analysis of your work is skewed once the focus becomes on your sexuality?
Any takers?
Well, I'm so specific about words. It's a pain in the ass, I know. Sorry. if we're censoring anything. But you know, at first you said, do you ever wish, or does it bother you? I gotta tell you, at the age of 87, nothing about me bothers me in terms of my race or my sexuality. Does it get in the way in the business of publishing? Yes, it does, absolutely. But I mean, and it can be annoying, and it can feel debilitating. But does it ever make me wish I was anything but who I am? No, at this point I bring everything. I mean, I have since I was 12. My mother on her deathbed said, "Thank God you were courageous enough to be who you are." So I'm celebrating that at this point. So no, not at all.
Linnell, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something in this that's tied into the earlier question about journalism. I mean, I think one of the great needs that we have is for graceful criticism in the arts, and to really have, you know, to not, you know, to really ask yourself as a journalist, what is this artist trying to do? What do I see happening in this work? And not to just sensationalize the identity, right, of the artist. And particularly in theater, I notice people doing this with queer plays and with black plays, so-called hip-hop plays all the time, where you know, instead of really talking about how the pieces are coming together to create a whole story, there's a book report kind of thing. I mean, it's like, you know, they'll just tell you the plot of the piece instead of really, you know, like, you know, an analysis of what the lighting is doing and what the text is doing and what the context is. And so I feel like there's a great opportunity there for you to really, you know, see the work. And sometimes, I mean, certainly, you know, I think we all create from our perspectives. I think this is a delicious incarnation. You know, and I love that I've been given this gift of you know, of these eyes through this body, through this desire, to experience the world, and I want to share as much of that as I can. You know, what other people call me and what other people see, I mean, that's not my job. It's not my business. That's your job, you know, and I challenge you to do it, right, and do it better, and to call your colleagues to do it. And I'll do my work, which is just to make the work. To make, you know, make.
And the machinery of fear has always been around to diminish people and their artistry. Always. And it comes from fear.
Yes.
And those people need healing. Not that you need to take that on. But those are their ghosts and their fears. And I think you create as boldly and as honestly and as truthfully and as unapologetically as you can, and you know, and have a sense of charity for those who are fearful.
That's very gracefully put. And I'd like to say just very briefly, although I am not technically a panelist, but I do want to address this as a black lesbian artist, that, I mean, my work is constantly minimized because I'm a woman, or because I'm black, or because I'm a lesbian. I mean, there's just so many ways to dismiss the work of artists of color, of women artists, you know, and I mean, you already know that, don't you? So I think the only, you know, thing you can do is just embrace all of yourself, and that your work, let your work be your emissary. Next question.
I think we have time for one more question.
One more.
Can I just say one? I had burning in my mouth to say this. Once I did a performance, and this young white male student was sitting there. He was presumably heterosexual. I don't know. But he said, you know, you're great. Your performance was really fantastic. But I just kept hearing white, and like, you know, and it made me feel really alienated with it. Like, and I said, wow, you know, I just gave a 90-minute performance, and if all that you heard out of all the words I said was white, then that's what you needed to hear. That's what you needed to hear. And I think other people who have, you know, who were in the same audience heard different things. You know, and I think that's okay. I mean, it's okay, you know, that people sort of hear what they need to hear and report the way they need to report. You know, we just need to know where we're coming from, and that's the best you can do.
So we have time for one more question. And I saw another hand earlier. What happened? So there we go.
Thank you very much. This was absolutely fabulous. I'm so glad that I came out tonight. Mine is probably not a question, but just a reaction to the question about identifying and what do you identify as first? And since you're 87 years old, I was just wondering if the identification has a connection to the generation that one comes out of. Being close to 87 myself, I always had a hope that future generations didn't have to identify as anything in terms of race necessarily. But then I have a fear that we'll lose that, so that then I'm an artist. I'm not a black artist, but no, you are a black artist. And so I just have a struggle with that as I see younger people having the comfort of not identifying that as first. And I just wanted to hear your reaction to that.
2 days ago, when did we see 12 years?
12 Years a Slave.
When did we see 12 years? I have friends out there who saw it with me, but they're not responding on Saturday. And, you know, I really had to have a conversation with myself. My students, I teach on a college level, and my students had seen it, and they kept saying, please, please, please see it so that we can talk about it. And they were angry, and I was talking to Eve about this earlier, and I said, I had to figure out what I felt my responsibility was as a teacher to go back to these young people. And I said, and I knew that it couldn't be anger on the same level that they had because it was counterproductive. And at my age, I am more about healing and peace than I am about retaliation. And what I had to admit was the same feelings of rage that I've always had came up, and I was a little disappointed that they hadn't changed at all. But I was proud of myself that I knew I had to temper some of that to go back to younger people and say very much what I said to you, that we need to be about loving ourselves, understanding the journey, but not retaliating as though we are, and in many cases I feel we are, right where we were, but not to behave in that fashion because it is so counterproductive. And I would rather see them grow and love themselves and see what comes out of that than get stuck in anger. Because I'm about reading and writing skills right now, which will help them go to a next level. And for them to use any excuse to sit in ignorance, I can't condone.
Thomas, do you have anything to add? We're really running towards the end here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was wondering when 12 Years a Slave was going to come up. And I was determined I would not be the one to usher it onto the stage.
Sorry.
But now that it has come up, I feel like we don't have a place where we can really mourn, outside of this space. When I hear all this, when I hear your stories and your poetry, and we talk about our childhood and my story, which keeps coming up, about my issues with my father and wanting to redeem him, and in a certain sense, my reading of the 12 Years a Slave was like, that architecture that is still present, and at the same time not having this space to mourn. And I feel like, how do we give people a place where we could, we can begin, as Linnell, you were talking about, shed the tears of sand, or whatever. We need to, we need to mourn, and I think that the anger is, yeah, just that mourning space, and and it's I feel like we are in a space of mourning, but it's not. We're not able to give voice to the mourning and to acknowledge where we are, and perhaps that's because we haven't had a truth and reconciliation, and I hope that this film, pushes young people, pushes people in general to begin to talk about things, and I feel like. And for me, my work is really about it's about redemption, and how we frame that, and because the other part of it is having grown up in such an intense Christian society with my grandparents, and so yeah, that's what I'm going to say.
Thank you.
I mean, there's more I could say, but I'm coming out of an edit room. And I'm
Listen to
like,
you all evening long. You're such wonderful artists and communicators. Just quickly to touch on this, but just to bring it on back, I think it was Bill and you questioned the notion of post-black. And that was a term coined by Thelma Golden at Studio Museum, and I just wanted to, you rejected the concept of post-black. So I just throw this really quickly out to you. Are we post-black? Are we post-gay? And just in 2 words or so, if you could just respond to that.
We're post, we're pre, we're present. It's all of it.
yeah. Yeah, it's about, for me, it's about location. I don't feel like, we need to be up here talking about, blackness in the same way as, let's say, in the 60s. It was like there's a we're doing something else. I'm not sure even how to what the name of it is, but certainly it's it's LGBT, and it's transformative, and it's liberating. Post, I think the post is it's really difficult to live in this country.
Okay.
I love that was the summary. It is really difficult to live in this country. It's true, because we're in a moment where we have the first biracial president, right? And we have simultaneously stop and frisk. We have simultaneously Renisha McBride and Trayvon Martin, right? So this is the cultural moment that we're
And
in.
Zakia Gunn.
Right, and Zakia Gunn.
Not that long
Right, so
ago.
we have a president who looks brown like me and says, I am a president first, right? But we also have people who are not able to get help, because they come knocking on somebody's door and they're killed.
Yeah.
So,
And the degree of mental illness in this country. in the construction of whiteness is a mental illness. Someone said on Facebook, there needs to be a 12-step program. Because the thing is that whiteness encompasses blackness, but it's the construction of blackness as outside, as something other, and having to go from a space that is a safe space, a space of family, and go into another space, and all of a sudden, boom, there are the 10 guns in front of you, is madness.
Absolutely.
Well,
Well,
we pray for healing.
yes. And may 87 look this good on all of us.
So yes, let's give applause to this wonderful panel, and thank you so much for putting this together, and look forward to seeing you at the next one.